Welcome back to the Keg King channel. I'm Daniel, and this is the Apollo Unitank. It's a 30-liter Unitank. What makes a Unitank different to the snub-nose variety Apollo is that it has this bottom catchment feature with a collection vessel and a plunge valve on top so that you can actually harvest yeast off the bottom of your fermenter, making it a true Unitank. So, we're going to go ahead and assemble one of these today. We also have assembly instructions available on the web page. If you scroll down, you'll find the manual available here at the base. Click on that, it will open up a PDF and you can follow along at your own pace when you do the written instructions. So we'll go ahead and put this one together now. Just a reminder, these are Australian made. They're all individually pressure tested, and we are very proud of that fact, that the entire line of P.E.T fermenters at Keg King are manufactured here in Australia. So let's go ahead and unbox one. We'll assemble it after we get all the parts out. Go ahead and we'll open this box. Here's a couple of things you will need when you begin your own assembly. So scissors just for cutting open the box, also for cutting the dip tube, which is going to be a little bit longer than what you need for a 30-liter tank. A cap spanner if you have one. It's not that necessary, but we do want you to be aware that if you over tighten the spigot at the bottom of the tank using this thing, it might crack the plastic. So you have to be careful about over tightening. This entire assembly can be done just using things finger tight. It will seal really well, and if you do need to make a little extra seal to tighten it, you can use the cap spanner on the base. You can also use a spanner for the posts on top of the lid, but again, finger tight should be all you need to get tight seals on your Unitank. And also a little bit of spray sanitizer just to help you as a lubricant when you're putting the silicone dip tube into place, and also for any other type of lubricant as you're kind of putting things into place on this fermenter. So let's get started. Let's get the parts out of this box. Here's what they look like. So here's what it looks like bagged inside the box. You'll see the tank has its own plastic bag just to keep it from scratching while it's in transit. There's also this bag of parts, everything you need for all the assembly of all the bits, top on the lid and on the base, are going to be in this bag. This is also included. This is the thermowell and plunge valve that's going to seal up the bottom of the tank. And lastly, there is this stainless steel stand, which I wondered where I put. The stainless steel stand's right here, and it's a new design stainless steel stand. I think you're really gonna like it. A little bit more low profile, and there's also the ability when using it as a Unitank, if you want to, you can put wheels on this. They're available as a separate package. So inside this bag, you're gonna find the lid assembly and the stickers for volume. There is this bag of O-ring seals. You're also gonna find this bottom spigot. This is your collection vessel for the bottom of the tank. This is the float ball assembly for the floating pickup tube. This is the stickers that are gonna go on the outside of the tank, the silicone dip tube. This is a 2-inch tricover adapter for the base of the tank. This is the handle for the very top of your plunger valve. And then you're gonna find the post for gas and another post in here, post assembly for liquid. It's that thermometer sticker that was there. So this is the circlip and the Allen key for the grub screw that are gonna go on top of the thermowell and plunge valve. Lastly, in that bag, you're gonna find the dryhop port, and you're also gonna find an assortment of PRVs. Okay, so that's everything. Let's go ahead and start by checking out your tank. There's a hole at the base of it. What we're gonna do is put the bottom assembly together first. So the first thing you're gonna do is find this assembly for the bottom assembly. It's already put together for you, and you're just going to have to take off this bottom nut. And you're also gonna take off this outside nut here. That leaves you with this silicone seal and this part of the assembly which goes to the inside of the tank. Go ahead and just drop it into place there. And then using your finger to hold it in place at the base like that, go ahead and flip it back around. Grab this nut, and you'll just tighten it into place loosely. I mean, get it in there so that it holds nice and tight on that silicone seal on the inside, but you don't have to worry about it being like absolutely rock solid tight. It's gonna seal really nicely. Now put this nut back into place. Removing the cap from your collection vessel, you can simply just screw this into place in the base of your Unitank just like that. And like I said, we can tighten up these things once we get it all together. Now, when you're using this as a Unitank, you can work out however you'd like to have it in place in your brewery, but having the stand like this will allow you the height to have this collection vessel sitting just on the base like that. So if that suits your height requirements and height needs in your brewery, fantastic. But there are other ways that you can assemble this even without the collection vessel and with this whole rack turned upside down that kind of turns it into a snub nose fermenter and gives you a little bit more height clearance if you need to get it into a chamber. So go ahead and find your lid assembly. It's going to come in two pieces with the collar that's going to hold this top piece down and this lid piece, which is much wider than the assemblies that we've had on P.E.T. fermenters in the past, except for the 60 liter. So what this allows you to do now is get your hand in here for cleaning if you'd like to, but some people will probably prefer to use a CIP system to minimize scratching and anything that happens inside that fermenter when they wipe. Because what you can do is we've given you this 1/2 inch threaded area here to attach a spray ball to for your CIP system. So as you circulate water and cleaning fluid under 50 degrees inside this tank, it will do the job of cleaning for you. We've also given you this wider port, which is your dry hopping port. We're gonna go ahead and just fix the dry hopping port into place on the lid. That's the first thing you're gonna do. And then select a PRV of your choice and put that into the top of the dry hop port. Just like that. So the next thing we're going to do is the post assembly. So select either one of the posts, gas or liquid, and you'll know it's a gas or liquid post because the gas post is actually notched at the base of it. So this one's a liquid post because there's no notch in the bottom of it. So go ahead and choose either side to put your liquid post. You're going to start with taking the dip tube, which is this piece here, with the O-ring that's at the very top of it, and just go ahead and put it through the port. Take your post and a spring and a poppet, pop them on in there. The poppet will be at the narrow end of the spring. The wider end of the spring should sit on top of the dip tube. And then go ahead and put that into place on this threading. Now, being a stainless steel, it's plastic thread, I always suggest that people start going backwards first, and you'll see kind of where the threads meet when it kind of pops up a little bit. And then you'll know you're right on the thread, and you just go ahead and tighten it into place just like that. And get it nice and tight just with your fingers. And that's it. That'll be a nice leak-proof, sealed liquid post connection. Go ahead and find your gas assembly, and it's going to be exactly the same thing. So that's your top lid assembly. We're going to go ahead and put the floating dip tube on the liquid side. So as you'll see, the gas side has that notch in it. This liquid side is where we're going to attach the silicone dip tube to this steel dip tube that's sticking out the bottom of the lid. Now, I also want to point out on the bottom of the lid that there are these expansion ports for attaching extra equipment should you so like to in the future. Now, they don't come included with this kit, but they are available. You can get temperature control coils for this unit. And what you're going to do is you'll see there is these circles here. Now, I would always suggest if you're going to hook up a temp coil through this lid, use these two ports away from your disconnects, your post ports over here. That'll give you more room on this side of the lid so that you can get disconnects on and off of your posts. It's up to you if you'd like to, because we give you another one that's like actually closer and right in between these two posts here on the underside. Now, inside this circle is where you're supposed to attach that equipment, and that center divot, that little dent right there in the center of each one of those expansion port circles, is where you put your drill to be able to get a bite on the lid and go through it. Go ahead, locate a little bit of sanitizer. You can use spray sanitizer or ethanol. So you've just wet the end of the silicone dip tube. Make sure that you're on the liquid post, which is the one without the notch. And on this underside here, go ahead and put this silicone dip tube onto this steel dip tube. Now, it shouldn't take too much doing to get it into place just like that. And then once it's on, try to get it to go on at least like 1/4 to 1/2 inch, 10 mil maybe, up the post if you can. It's not too hard to do that. You're just kind of using dry fingers. push up on it like that. And that should easily get you purchase of about an inch worth of silicone onto that stainless steel dip tube, okay? So we're gonna leave this length for right now, but it is gonna be too long for this fermenter. Unless you do wanna keep it, you shouldn't have any issue with being able to extract the 30 liters of this fermenter with this dip tube, but we can make it so that it actually doesn't slide off the base of the plunge valve so that you can have centralized pickup, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So for this part, we're almost done. And now we're gonna move to doing the plunge valve setup. So you'll find the bag with the circlet. Just go ahead and pop it into place on this groove on the plunge valve shaft like that. So for this next part of the assembly, you're gonna have to locate your plunge valve, and you're gonna need to put a seal at the base of the plunge. So with your bag of O-rings that are provided, there are some spares in here. There's also one for the plunge valve. Now, there's a really thick one that's in there that's a bit wider. When you get it into place, it's a nice tight seal. It's still got a bit of flex to it, but it's gonna help make that seal at the base of the fermenter. And so that's that in place. Now, this is the pro move right here. So for the people who aren't watching this video, you might miss this little trick. But the next thing you're gonna wanna do is locate the bag with this float ball assembly in it. And go ahead and remove the key ring, the big key ring, right? And put that over your plunge valve like that. Because this is the easy way to do it. The other way is gonna destroy the key ring if you try to get it into place once you've put this assembly into the lid. But go ahead now, you're one step above people who haven't done that properly. And go ahead and put that into place on the lid. So give yourself a little bit of a stretch of that silicone, give yourself a little bit of room at the base. You're gonna remove about 10 centimeters, 100 mil in freedom units. That's about 4 inches from the base of this tubing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and eyeball that and just go, that's about it, and cut. Because that'll still have the flexibility to work with this. And now go ahead and locate that float ball assembly. Go ahead and put the stainless steel tube into the silicone tube. Now it seems like it's almost impossible, but then all of a sudden the stars align and everything works out and you can finally get that tube into place. That's about what it will look like when it's on there nice and solid. So you've got probably about just over a ½ inch worth of the silicone over the stainless steel tube. So now this little key ring at the base of this tube, go ahead and slide that onto the big key ring that you've already got on the plunge valve shaft, just like that. So now you have a centralized floating pickup tube that will stay in the center of your tank. Locate the bag with the handle in it and locate that little Allen key that comes with this. There are some spare grub screws in the bag, but there usually is one in the handle assembly itself, a little hole off the side. So that should give you the ability to line it with the hole in the side of the plunge valve, and then just go ahead using the Allen key and tighten that into place. You don't have to over tighten it, but there. Now you've got the plunge valve, which should work, and the circlip will keep it so that you can, when you do pull up on it, so that you can keep it from pulling the whole entire assembly up out of the lid too high. So that's your lid, dry hop port, PRV, posts, floating dip tube assembly with centralized floating pickup, and the plunge valve base with the seal on it. That's pretty much everything. Now we're gonna go ahead and put this into the fermenter, and then just push down on the lid so that you can get the lid to seal into the neck. So if you have to, just pull up on the plunge valve so you have enough space to be able to do so. So that fits in there just like that, and the plunge valve will just go right down neatly into place right there. Now when you're fermenting, you're gonna wanna have the plunge valve up, which will allow for the sediment to go into this collection vessel at the base. So now that we've got most of this assembly all set up, there's a few more things to do. Make sure that you keep this bag of O-rings handy, because should you have some sort of issue with an O-ring, you do have spares in this bag. So the last thing is just get this collar in on top nice and tight so that it's holding down on that lid that's sitting in the neck. So the last couple of things we need to do is put these volume stickers into place. So in the last video I did for the snub nose, I like to do it on this seam that kind of runs up and down the fermenter on the side, which is underneath one of the handles. You might choose to put this anywhere else on the fermenter that you'd like to, but for those of you that really need a nice straight line to be able to align the sticker to, this seam line running down the side is a nice straight line that you can use. So the top indication on this sticker has a red line. So it's 30 liters, and that red line is going to go right at the crease between the neck and the tank body shoulder right here. So if you want to start by doing it there, you can. The other thing you can do is you can level out this tank as best as possible using a little spirit level across the lid and having added like a liter or two of water into the tank itself. And then starting from the bottom, you can put that water level line right at the indication line on the sticker and then go from the bottom up. But in this case, I'm just gonna whack this sticker onto the side of it and we'll keep going because we've got a couple other little things to do on this tank to test it before it's ready for use. You may choose to put this thermometer sticker wherever you want to. I'm just gonna put it kind of right next to our volume sticker over on the side here. So that's it. Now, in order to get this thing running, you do have one more sticker left. That's this tank sticker here. So it can go anywhere you want, and it just has some important information for how to keep your tank and how to treat it properly. So being that this is a P.E.T fermenter, definitely no heat, store it out of the sunlight. Do not store it with caustic or cleaning chemicals in it wet. It'll degrade the plastic over time faster if you do that. They should always be stored dry. You can use a little bit of pressure when they're being stored, but there's no need to fill it with sanitizer and keep it until the next time you use it, or with cleaner until the next time. You just want to store it dry. Out of sunlight, someplace cool, and you'll be ready to go for the next time. Just treat it with a little bit of sanitizer and off you go. Now also, if you do fill it with sanitizer, I would recommend getting a little quickie that you can use for the top on the liquid post to push down and eject some of the sanitizer out of the post so that you know you have a very clean liquid assembly post. And so with that sticker, you can put it on the tank. We would recommend you put it on the tank or keep it for reference later. So that really thick O-ring that's in your bag of O-rings goes on the plunge valve. You're gonna grab one of these other size O-rings that's very similar in size. That one's gonna fit right in the base here to create a better seal for this portion of the spigot. And then there's a medium-sized O-ring in there that's about like this, and it's gonna fit perfectly on the shelf inside this part of that bottom spigot. And we'll go ahead and put the collection ball into it like that. So that creates an even better seal. So that's it. Let's fill it with a little bit of sanitizer and we'll pressure check it. I'll show you how to do that right now. So once you get like about 5 liters in there, you can start testing for leaks. We're also going to use a spray bottle up on the lid joints to find out if we've got good seals up here on the lid equipment. So we'll go ahead and add, say, about 5-10 psi, somewhere in there. 10's fine. Using your gas port, just go ahead and blow in a little bit of extra gas. So when you first pressurize an Apollo, you might hear it kind of making some sounds. It's a much thicker P.E.T than we've used before. And what you're gonna hear is some kind of not crunching or crackling noises, but just a little bit of knocking around as the P.E.T starts to stretch a bit. So it will even out over time. So using a bit of soapy water, we're gonna check for leaks. I can already hear that there is one. Pretty substantial leak too. And it's coming from over here in that dry hop port. So when you check for leaks, that's what you're looking for. If you find a leak, you're gonna see it bubbling like that. So in this case, I'm pretty sure we forgot to put on an O-ring on the dry hop port. I think I might have just screwed it right into place without checking to see if there was one. So sometimes when you get those dry hop ports, just check to see that there is an O-ring in place on it, because it's kind of important for getting the seal on the lid. So let's go ahead, depressurize, and we'll go ahead and pop the O-ring into place on this. I'd almost bet, and I'm right, there's no O-ring on this, which needs to be installed at the top here. And so there it actually is in our list of O-rings. This O-ring goes into place on the dry hop port just like that. Now we'll try screwing it into place. I'll bet we get a better seal. Let's see. So we'll bring up the pressure again. So if you can hear leaks, obviously you have a leak, but in this case, that O-ring is exactly what was missing for us to be able to get a good seal on the lid. But we'll go ahead and using some spray, again, we'll just double check that there isn't anything else around. So this time around, just check the joins underneath the posts, check the join where the plunge valve is, check on top here, and you can see now that O-ring solved that problem. So that's how to check for leaks on the lid. As I was saying, you're just gonna check all the different join points with soapy water, and if you find anything, you're just gonna need to give it a tighten to get it to seal. In the case of this dry hop port, it was just the O-ring seal that I'd forgotten to put on. So make sure you put on your dry hop port O-ring to keep a nice seal on this port on your lid. So now on the bottom part of your fermenter, you're looking for any leaks of water coming out, especially under pressure. So if you do notice them, depressurize, and then you're just gonna use a spanner to tighten up some of these joints. Not too tight because it is plastic and it will join. So that's it. Now when you're fermenting, it is gonna be in the upright position with the plunge valve. And then after fermentation, if you relieve a bit of the pressure, you will be able to press the plunge valve into place down in the base there. And you'll feel when it's in place because there's no further area for it to drop down into. It'll be a nice tight seal. And then yes, you can squeeze this collection ball if you need to. And then making sure that you have something underneath to catch any leaks or spills when it comes off. You're gonna go ahead and unscrew the collection ball from the base of the fermenter and sanitize out this cap and put it on top so that you can keep the yeast that you collect during fermentation for other pitches and other fermentations that you're going to do in the future. So it's quite an economical little fermenter as well, being able to give you the ability to harvest yeast, whatever yeast that is. So temperature control. Obviously, this is a little bit too high to fit in a Series 4 fridge. Now, without the collection vessel on it and it flipped upside down in its rack, it will be more like a snub nose and it can fit in there. But let's just say you don't need a Series 4 fridge anymore to do temperature control on Apollo or any of the line of P.E.T products or fermenters from Keg King. We do have two little temperature control devices, the Fermenter King and Fermenter King Max, which is about to hit the market pretty soon as well. So both of them utilized enhanced thermoelectronics to be able to give you the ability to heat or cool by way of an internal cooling coil or heating coil, temp control coil inside of your fermenter. So it's really easy to hook those up, and I am going to do another video in the future to show how to hook it up into the lid because it's easy and it creates a really simple way for you to keep your fermentation in a separate area than where you keep your kegs inside of a kegerator. So a lot of us are using different refrigerators that we put temp controllers on for fermentation chambers, but in this case, if you're indoors and you're able to get the temp coil into the lid, you can then use a Fermenter King to do your fermentation temperature control, making it easier for you to keep your Unitank out in a jacket for better efficiencies with the temperature, and just use that little unit, which is very quiet when it runs, to do the job of fermentation temperature control, heating or cooling. So that's the assembly for the Apollo Unitank. It allows you to ferment, clarify, carbonate, harvest yeast in the same vessel, and you can serve out of it as well. You've got the centralized floating pickup for when you're moving liquid out of it, so that float ball doesn't come out to the side of the tank and pick up sediment off of the cone. You have a dry hop port. You have the ability to do real liquid temperature reads through the plunge valve, which is also your thermowell. And of course, you have a bigger, wider lid for being able to get your hand in there and do the cleaning if you want to. However, you still have also the ability or the option to get a spray ball and use that for the CIP cleaning of your tank and keep your hands out of it. So, the Apollo Unitank. You're gonna love it. We love using it as well, and we love making these. Each one of them is made here in Australia, individually pressure tested, and that means that you're getting a quality product every time you get one. So thanks for buying one. Thanks for your interest in Keg King products. Hit the like and subscribe buttons, and thanks for watching.